I'm Steve Skinner. I'm the director of the Greenwood Genetics Center, and it's my great pleasure to welcome all of you to our campus this evening. It is fantastic to see this many people out on a hot evening to learn about a little bit about what we do. If you didn't know, this is Gene Week. This is something we created. We're celebrating genetics, genomics, in the Greenwood Genetics Center, and we've been doing this for several years now. 5 years? 5 years. So we had a fantastic Science on Tap Tuesday night, learned a lot about education, and then we have a talk about education tonight. So if you haven't figured out the theme of this week, June week, is education. And then we'll cap it off with Race the Helix on Saturday morning. So we'd love to see all of you out for Race the Helix. You can walk, you can run, or you can just cheer us on, whatever you want to do on Saturday. But it's a great time to kind of celebrate being here. And I don't know that we knew it at the time, but today is our 45th birthday. This is at least we've been told that this was the actual day that Roger Stevenson arrived in Greenwood with his plans for the Greenwood Genetics Center. So I hope that's true, Roger. That's what we're telling everybody.
They'll take whatever they say.
So we're celebrating our 45th birthday today on Gene Week. So it's a great pleasure to have you here to celebrate our 45th birthday. So typically, if you've been here before and heard us talk, usually you hear us talk about sequencing genes and NovaSeqs, or perhaps neural tube defects in folic acid, or maybe zebrafish and making avatars and those type of things. But we're focusing on education, so we want to tell you a little bit about our education division and how it's really the foundation for all that we do in genetics and genomic medicine, and how it relates to everything we do. So I'm not going to tell you a lot about the other things that we've talked about in the past. So I wanted to start. This is the mission of the Greenwood Genetics Center, and if you'll see, highlighted in green, education is right there in the middle of what we do. So this just describes the four divisions: our clinical services, our diagnostic laboratory services, our education division, and then our research division. So it's part of what we do every day, an integral part of what we do every day. And it's in our vision statement as far as being a center of medical excellence, and we want to be a resource for all those that need genetic services and information. And so that's what education supplies for that vision that we're all striving towards. So if you've ever been here before, our focus is patients and patient care. Everything starts with a patient, and hopefully that's where we end with treatments, prevention, hope. But everything's centered on the patient and the needs of the patient, trying to provide answers for patients, hope for patients, and mostly preventions and treatments for genetic disorders. So you might ask, how does Division of Education fit in with our patient-centered mission? So that's what we hope you'll get out of tonight's presentations. It's just how it's central to everything we do here at the Greenwood Genetics Center. And as Laurie told me, education is our long-range plan for providing compassionate, high-quality care. And so we'll try to explain why we say that education is our plan for being a compassionate, high-quality patient care provider. So Leah is going to tell you more about this, and you'll have a chance to experience hands-on with some very fun educational activities tonight. But I'm just going to highlight some of the building blocks of the foundation of education. So we're going to talk a lot about education outreach, and it goes all the way from middle school, high school, undergraduate, graduate, to professionals and adult education. So it's really the cornerstone of what we do from an education standpoint here, but what we do as far as our day-to-day activities with patients and families that come to us. We also, through our education division, provide education for professionals, and this ranges from healthcare providers to our own staff and faculty as well. So we are always constantly learning, and our division of education is the cornerstone for making that happen for us, so that we have a educated, informed, relevant workforce just to take care of the patients that we see. You may not know that we have the only training programs in the state for clinical genetics residents, so MDs that want to become clinical geneticists, or laboratory medical geneticists, or PhDs that want to run a diagnostic laboratory. So we are building and growing our own future genomic workforce here, and also supplying workforce across the country as our graduates go out to other locations around here. So our education division is integrally involved in this process as well. And then we do a lot to educate the community, the lay public. So genetics and genomics is going to be involved in healthcare more and more. It's going to be involved in what you're reading in the lay press more and more. And our feeling is that the more educated you are about genetics and genomics, the better you understand that, the better decisions you'll be making as you're faced with genetic testing in your healthcare decision-making in the future. So part of what we want to do is educate the public as well. And then finally, and most importantly, educating our patients. So through our education division and others here, we've created the counseling aids, which is used by genetic counselors across the world. It's recognized as a resource to help explain complicated genetic information to patients when they're trying to understand a diagnosis or their diagnostic test results. And so this is, again, part of our education outreach, which, as you can see, it impacts everything we do here. It impacts all of our community that we intersect with, so it's an integral part and foundation of all we do here at Greenwood Genetics Center. So, it's a small division. We have our instructors up here on the front row, all 4 of them, that serve the whole state of South Carolina. 13,000 students a year that they intersect with, as well as doing things on this campus for the rest of the staff and faculty. We got our drivers that take us all these places around the state, and then our librarian that helps us find information when we can't find it ourselves. So it's a small division, but they rely on all of our faculty and staff. So we have somewhere around 185 faculty and staff now, and we're all at the beck and call of Dr. Tribble when she needs someone to give a lecture or to get involved with something. So it is a center-wide effort to make sure that we're providing the educational activities that are needed. And then, just in case you didn't know, we didn't invite you here just to hear about what we do and just to celebrate our birthday, but we invited you here hopefully to get you excited about what we do, particularly in the education division. This is something that touches your heart or something that you're passionate about. We invite you, or give you the opportunity to help Lita to accomplish her mission and her vision for providing genetic and genomic education across the state. Right now, we do not have any recurring funding for any of our genetic programs, so all of this is done out of institutional funds that we raise from other sources right now. And so that's my kind of ask tonight, and that's the only ask we'll do, but Boo Ramage is in the back. If you have interest in talking to her about how you can support the education outreach efforts here, see her, and she'll help you make that a possibility. And now, I was told to keep it short, so I did. It's my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Lita Tribble. She's hiding over here. I think you see her. So Dr. Tribble came to the Greenwood Genetics Center in 2000. So she's been here 19 years. And she started the education division from a division of 1 to what you see now, but has really grown the impact across the state and really across the world with all of her efforts. So we're very proud and to present her to you tonight, and let her introduce the rest of the program and showcase the education division. So Lita, thank you.
Thank you. and good evening, and welcome to the Greenwood Genetics Center. I am truly excited that you're here. Thank you very, very much for your interest in learning more about what we do in the field of outreach education. Before we start our program, I would like to first introduce our staff to you, because you'll see these great folks again when we do our activities in the lobby. So I'm going to introduce them. This is Mr. Dylan Gary, biology graduate from Presbyterian College. Ms. Hannah Daniel, graduate in biology as well from Lander University. This is Ashley Lavadura. She too is a biology graduate from NYU. No, I didn't make that up. It's New York University. And then Mr. Zach Bowens, a biology graduate from Erskine College. So these are a wonderful team, and I know that you're going to enjoy working with them. Now, our mobile lab would stay parked in the parking lot were it not for Mr. Wayne Still. So I want to recognize Mr. Wayne as well all over the state. Thank you very much. So I'm very happy to tell you that we're beginning our 10th year of operation and service with this program. And so in the next few slides, what I would like to do is to explain the purpose of the program, why are we doing this, to also look at the process and the procedure that we use to implement the program, and then lastly, to look at the progress. Is this a program that is worth the time and effort and expense to maintain? Are we seeing some benefits with our students and teachers in these 9 years in which we've completed? I'll share information with you at the end, and maybe you can have a chance to answer some of those questions for me. I think it's helpful to understand a little bit about the history of the program. As Dr. Skinner mentioned, I've been here since 2000. Well, prior to 2009, we had an education outreach program, but it was one person, and the format was very different. So in 2009, something very significant happened to allow us to grow this program, to start this program. So I submitted a grant to the NIH for funding to develop an outreach education program. The stipulated purpose was to enhance genetic literacy for our students and teachers in South Carolina. Well, amazingly, the grant was funded. We were so excited. And so the grant was in the amount of $861,000, and it allowed us to do a number of things. Start the program, number one. It allowed us to design and build the mobile lab. We were also able to renovate and remodel an existing building on campus to have a dedicated genetic education center so that groups could come here and as well. And then it provided all of the equipment that we need for both the mobile lab and for the genetic education center. So the grant itself covered our expenses, covered our program for the first 3 years of operation. After that period of time, probably for about 4 or 5 years, we came under the institutional support by the center, for which we are very grateful. But then in 2017, again, 2 very important things happened. One is that we signed a memorandum of agreement with the South Carolina Department of Education. And it was through a specific proviso. It was one-time funding in the amount of $278,000. Now, this proviso was designed to provide enhanced educational opportunities to those schools and to the original trial and plaintiff school districts in the Abbeville lawsuit. You may remember that. It's been a number of years now that these schools filed this lawsuit in order to have more equitable funding for their school districts. So this was a one-time opportunity, and there was a gentleman here in Greenwood, Dr. Ray Wilson, who was so significant in our being able to have this arrangement with the Department of Education. And I am very thankful to Dr. Wilson. The second thing that happened in 2017 was that we, through the Education Oversight Committee, EOC, through the EOC, and again, another proviso called the Private Partnership Proviso, we were awarded $250,000, and with that funding, we were able to add our second vehicle, which is our van, we call it the Helix Express, and also to fully equip that vehicle as well. So that funding we continue to use, and two individuals who were extremely important in this opportunity were Senators Lloyd Nicholson and Mike Gambrell. And again, I will always be thankful to them for their support. 2018, the proviso through EOC was extended, and we received another additional $150,000, and so we have used it into 2019. And then lastly, just in September of this year, First Citizens Bank gave us a grant of $30,000 over a 3-year period. And so we are very appreciative of this local support and very appreciative to First Citizens Bank for encouraging and supporting for our programs. So I wanted you to appreciate the history, how this started and where we are today. So for the next few slides, I want to talk about what is our purpose. Our purpose is very, very specific. We are here to provide and encourage and enhance genetic literacy and understanding. That was always part of that original grant to the NIH. That is something that we continue to follow very much today. We also introduce students to biotechnology and laboratory workplace skills. So we tell them when we are teaching them about how to use a micropipette, what in the world is gel electrophoresis, how do you isolate DNA, and all of these questions about laboratory skills, that these are skills that are used in the workplace. These are skills that if you walked into one of our diagnostic labs, you would see the very same equipment that you're using. So that is important because it supports the profile of the South Carolina graduate in teaching real life and workplace skills. And then we also like to introduce students to the various career paths that are available in the life sciences. And we'll talk more about that later. But those are our 3 very focused objectives with this particular program. So how do we do what we do? Well, and where do we go? Oh my goodness. We work any school with any educational facility in the state. So we go to public schools, private schools, magnet schools, charter schools. We work with homeschool groups. We work with virtual school programs. Now that's a challenge to arrange, but we do. We work with virtual school programs. And we work with students that are in grades 7 through 12. And the calendar that we work from is generated from request forms that we receive from teachers. And the calendar always fills very quickly. So we met on Science on Tap on Tuesday evening, and we were talking about the numbers of trips already scheduled. So since Tuesday, we've added an additional 6 to 8 schools. I can't remember the exact count. So it fills very quickly, and we're so excited and happy for that. So what do? When we visit a school, what is it that we provide for these students? We like to say that we have inquiry-based activities, but we have 3 separate categories from which teachers can choose activities. So we have our basic laboratory skills, which I mentioned to you earlier. Then we have our forensics activities. Those are just required. It doesn't matter who you are or what kind of organization you are, students love to do forensics activities. And interestingly, the technology is the same. It's just that you're investigating another endpoint, but the technology itself is the same. And then our big category are these are genetic disorders that we focus on. And so we like to introduce these disorders through a patient. So we may have a patient description, we may have a case study, we may have a family history and they draw the pedigree, they may be given a pedigree and asked to analyze it. Then they will run certain types of tests, maybe a molecular test, maybe looking at the chromosomes or a biochemical test. But the students perform the test and then they analyze their results and they determine the status of their patient. Is there a mutation present? Does the patient have the disorder? Are they unaffected or a carrier? So they come to these conclusions by working through their patient descriptions and case studies. So I put, this is not all of the disorders that we have on our list. I don't think that many in our faculty and staff actually know what exercises we do under this category. But you can see that we do hereditary cancer syndrome, sickle cell disease, Rett syndrome, which is a very important part of our work here at the center. We have a lab on folic acid and the neural tube defects and prevention program. And then you can see the others. So what I want to emphasize by this particular slide is to tell you that when we go out into the public, we are a direct representation of GGC. Everything that we do is a reflection of our wonderful staff in the laboratories, our researchers, our clinicians, and the work that we do here at GGC. So we're very proud of that. When we go out, we provide everything, and you'll see examples of these out on the mobile lab, which I hope you'll walk through at the end of the evening. And then lastly, I mentioned that one of our objectives was to expose and introduce students to various career paths. Medical school and nursing school is not for everyone, and I'm amazed at how many students think those are their only choices if they want to major in science. So we try to tell them, oh no, think about genetic counseling, think about research, laboratory diagnostic work, our metabolic dietitians. I said, that's one of the most fascinating fields to me. If you like food and designing diets for people who have genetic disorders, our educators, our PA. So there's a whole host of opportunities in the life sciences. We hope we're making that point to our students. Our progress. How have we done through these last 9 years? This is information from the most recent school year, 18 and 19. So those numbers that you see represent the number of times we visited a particular county. Now, all of the white are the ones that we did not visit last year. However, I can assure you that in the previous 9 years, we have been to most of those. South Carolina has 46 counties. I think at this point we've been to 42. And it is our intent to get to all 46. So this is from last year. And then here's some numbers. We gather lots of numbers because we want to see what we're doing and where we've been. So between or with all 3 sites, there were 218 visits. 98 trips were made by the Gene Machine and Mr. Wayne, who takes it around. 91 were made by the van or the Helix Express. And then the number of students approximates 13,000 that we worked with just in one school year. So again, that's very exciting for us. We'd like to see our numbers. We'd like to know that we're going places. And then I think this is a very interesting graph because it starts from the very first year, from 2010, when I was so worried, how in the world is this program ever going to start? Is anybody going to call and ask us to come? You know? So we started there, and then each year has increased. You see that we added our van, again through the proviso in 2017. And the addition of the van has almost allowed us to double the number of students that we can see in 1 year. So it's a rewarding program. I'd like to also gather feedback from students, from teachers. And so these were just some of the ones that I picked out. Of course, they're all going to be very positive statements that I share with you. But it's exciting to see this and to get this kind of response from high school students. So the future, tonight we're celebrating the 45th anniversary of the Genetics Center. So as the Genetics Center plans and prepares for the next 50, what are we planning for or hoping for in terms of outreach education? Well, there are challenges. The challenges are always good. One of them is that we'll have to continue to seek funding, a more consistent stream of funding, and so that means more grant writing, perhaps collaborations with other organizations and programs. I see this program, this is me, but I see this program as truly an opportunity to expand throughout the state. We travel from Greenwood everywhere. If we had a couple of other hubs in two different regions of the state, staffed with bands and staff, imagine the number of students that we could serve. Imagine the more visits we could make to individual schools and working with students. And ultimately, the impact that that makes. I contend that if students have consistent reinforcement, opportunities to do things and learn things and interact, then they're going to have a significant increase in their interest in science and school and in their career possibilities for the future. And that is critical. And then we're always challenged just to stay current. Oh my goodness. You know, topics around here change all the time. And we have to try to come up with activities that support and continue to represent what the GGC does. So I've asked a good friend and one of our teachers, Miss Missy Coddington. She is a teacher at Lawrence Academy. I just want you to have an opportunity to hear a teacher's perspective on what the outreach program has meant for her school and her students. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for this opportunity to share about the Greenwood Genetics Center and what it has meant in my life and my students' lives. And I wanted to start off by saying, first of all, that it was started, I think you said, in 1975, is that right? One of the biggest influences in my life was one of my teachers, and he worked at the Greenwood Genetics Center in the early 70s. A lot of you knew Dr. Bill Alexander, but I was privileged to have Dr. Alexander as my 7th grade science teacher. I had never heard of anything to do with genetics before, and I learned so much about the Greenwood Genetics Center because of his passion for the work that you do here. Then I had him again in 10th grade biology, and that was the point when I decided that I would major in biology. And so you affected me even way back then. My life was changed because of that. And now I am privileged to have taken a graduate level course here through Dr. Tribble to learn about genetics and how I can apply that in my classroom as a current biology teacher at my school. I learned so much during that class. I think it was 2011, and you guys took us out and showed us the mobile lab. And I was just in awe of what the mobile lab could accomplish. And so then when I took the role of teaching biology at my current position at Lawrence Academy, the very first thing I did in August was call Dr. Tribble and say, please, can you put us on your list? We would really, really love to have you bring the mobile lab here, and what can we do? And so it has just been a real blessing to my school ever since. It's regular occasion. We sign up as soon as I can remember because I forget a lot of things, but we get on that list, and we have been so blessed because, for one thing, we are a very small school. We are K through 12, 200 students or so in Lawrence County. We're in a poor county. And so, you know, our population is in some ways very similar to everyone else who lives around us. We're not a very privileged school. And so it's a real blessing to have Dr. Tribble and her staff come and make a difference in my students' lives. Because we're small, we are able to allow our 7th graders, they do the middle school activity and they get introduced to micropipettes and what in the world is gel electrophoresis. And then in our 10th grade biology, they do a more in-depth analysis. We've done the mad cow disease, which is really fun, and they get to think like a scientist and apply this to a real-life work situation. And then our chemistry students in 11th grade get to do a more in-depth, usually forensics lab. And it's just really meant a lot to our students. They look forward to that every year. And I'm beginning now to get feedback from our students who've gone off to college. And so I wanted to share a few words from some of our students who have gone off to college and what they had to say about their experience. The first is from a student who is a junior majoring in physical therapy at the College of Charleston. Terry Brown, you may know James and Judith Brown from the Advertiser in Lawrence, but their daughter Terry said that the mobile lab provided her with the opportunity to get hands-on experience with instruments and lab practice she wouldn't have had access otherwise. And she was able to go into her college labs from day one more confident, as well as knowing how to use the equipment that was in front of her. And she made the comment to me that a lot of the other students in the lab had no idea what they were doing at the College of Charleston. We had another student who was at the University of South Carolina majoring in biology, and her comments were very similar. This year, I have several students who are freshmen in biology at Clemson, and once again, same feedback. Such a blessing to have been part of the mobile lab, and they so value the experiences that they have. And so I just want to thank you for allowing us to participate each year. And also, you know, it's better to hear firsthand from someone. So I wanted to introduce you to one of my students, Zachary Mullinax. Zachary is a junior at Lawrence Academy, getting ready to do the mobile lab once again with his chemistry class. And just thought you might want to hear his perspective.
Hello everyone, I'm Zachary Mullinax. I'm a junior at Lawrence Academy. When I first got into high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my career. But because of the mobile lab, it really piqued my interest in genetics, and that caused me to do the summer camp to really make me really realize that I wanted to go into genetic counseling. And I'd like to thank the Greenwood Genetic Education Program for helping me realize that I really want to work in genetics.
I hope you see the impact that you're making in our students' lives. And I just wanted to leave you with one last thing. Genetics is very near and dear to my heart for another reason. My nephew, our first grandchild in our family, has Down syndrome, and he is coming on 21 years old now. He's just an absolute delight. And I love your statement where compassion inspires progress. And I just wanted to tell you that the compassion that you serve your population with really makes a difference. And it reminds me of, when I looked at Caleb when he was born, the thoughts that were going through my head were multiple. I had, there was some sorrow because of dropping dreams and having to pick up new ones. But there was also a joy that I couldn't explain with Caleb. And I think it comes from one of my favorite passages in Scripture, and I want to read that to you. And that is Genesis chapter 1, verse 31. And what God has to say when He's finished with the entire creation process, He looks at it and He says, He saw all that He had made, and it was very good. And I think that the compassion that you give towards the people that you serve echoes that even though they're struggling, life is precious. And so I just want to thank you for the difference that you are making. Thank you so much, Dr. Tribble, for this opportunity.
It is my pleasure now to introduce our guest this evening. Can you hear me all right? So I would like to introduce our next speaker. I'd like to introduce Morgan Nichols, Miss South Carolina. Morgan is a native of Lexington County and a recent summa cum laude graduate of Clemson University with a Bachelor of Science in Genetics and a minor in Business Administration. After interning for a major pharmaceutical manufacturing company for 2 years, she found that her true passion for the life science was for the life science industry. And this was sparked, and I didn't write this was sparked from her experience with the gene machine. I'm tempted to repeat that again, but I won't. Morgan's passion was taken to the stage when she won the job of Miss South Carolina this year, with her social impact initiative being Stronger with STEM, developing a 21st century STEM workforce. Morgan was also awarded second place for Children's Miracle Network, having raised over $12,000. She is the recipient of the Miss America Community Service Award, STEM Academic Scholarship, and the Quality of Life Award, winning over $67,000 in scholarships. Morgan will go on to compete in the 2020 Miss America competition. This will be on December the 19th through NBC. So I encourage all of us to support Miss South Carolina. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tribble. It is so special for me to be back here tonight. Like Dr. Tribble said, I just graduated from Clemson in genetics, and these past few months being an alumna have been kind of bittersweet, but it has been nice to be back at a place that when I talk about genes, people don't realize or don't think that it's just Levi's that I'm talking about. So that's been pretty cool to be back here. But tonight we've heard a lot about, all of the amazing things that are happening right here at the Genetics Center with their educational outreach program. But I want to tell you all a little bit more about why it is so essential to the state of South Carolina and to our future workforce. So as Dr. Trouble said, my whole initiative for my year as Miss South Carolina is really devoted to developing a 21st century STEM workforce. It is specifically catered to the life sciences because that is where my passions lie. But I think the best kind of message that I can give tonight is how all of this really got started with my story. So growing up, I was always going to work at ESPN. I was a volleyball player, I was a basketball player. I don't care if I was the janitor for ESPN. I wanted to work at ESPN for doing sports. And so it wasn't until my AP biology class, which we've got a wonderful biology teacher right here who just spoke before me, my AP biology class that really opened my eyes to this thing called the life sciences. And as some people squirmed when we did the cat dissection, I was truly intrigued. And then we got to our cell unit and our genetics unit. And that really intrigued me how 4 bases rearranged could really make up who we were as individuals. I'm someone who is black and white. I like to know the why behind everything. And for me, that was genetics. And so I was intrigued and wanted to learn more. And then I went to Clemson, and really that genetics piece, that genetics degree that was at Clemson, really pulled me to go there in the first place. And back up, what Dr. Tribble said was true. I did write that. Going in the gene lab in AP biology really sparked my interest and catalyzed me to go into my genetics degree. I still remember to this day using those pipettes and learning how to do that. I will never forget it. But went to Clemson. I always like to tell people that being a genetics major is we don't have a lot of textbooks. Because one minute it's published and the next minute it's out of date because it's so cutting edge and so new. But it was just amazing, all of the new cutting edge life science information that we were learning. I was able to use CRISPR, all of these new cutting edge genetic engineering technologies, and that was just something so amazing to me that I was able to do these hands-on experiences. And so, like we heard tonight, for me, the only really outlook that I had was going into med school, to be that clinician. That was the only way that I thought I could put my passions to work. And then I did have an internship at a major pharmaceutical manufacturing company down in West Columbia and saw all of these careers in the life sciences, and boy, were they making a lot of money too. I was like, well, this industry, it's making an impact, and it has some wonderful careers. And being at Clemson, being in the College of Science, biology is actually one of our largest majors for freshmen. But it's actually going up, it's one of the smaller majors for seniors because everyone transfers out because they have such a limited scope on career paths. And so I got super passionate about telling these people that were transferring out of these wonderful careers that were at these pharmaceutical manufacturing companies in our state, that were at the genetics center in our state, and these med device companies. And so then I actually went to work for a life science economic development association. I was an intern for them, and I did a lot of their investor relations. So I got to travel around the state of South Carolina, meeting with companies like the Greenwood Genetics Center, and seeing truly all of this amazing innovation, all of this cutting edge technology, and all this groundbreaking research that these companies were doing. And as we would get to talking, their main pain point right now is actually their workforce. And that is capping this limited growth that they could experience. And so, I thought to myself, well, if we can ultimately meet this workforce demand that we have for the life science industry here in South Carolina, then we're ultimately going to grow this industry, not only boosting our economy, but this industry is the essential part of our quality of life. I mean, think about what we do here, what y'all do here at the Genetics Center. It is the essential component of creating a better quality of life here in the state of South Carolina, here in the United States of America. And so I knew that I wanted to really develop an initiative as my year as Miss South Carolina to that. So that's where I created Stronger with STEM, which is all about promoting a 21st century life science workforce. And like I said, as these companies are investing in technology and investing in innovation, it's so essential that they still invest in people and that we showcase these careers and that we close this skills gap that is currently in South Carolina. And so what Greenwood is doing is truly cutting edge with this educational outreach program. We all know that genetics is the future of healthcare, it's the future of diagnostics, it's the future of medicine. And if we are, and the Greenwood Genetics Center has that step above in inspiring and developing these skills that are so needed out there in the workforce. It's said that 65% of kindergartners are going to have jobs that don't exist yet. And it all starts with creating these skill sets that are inspired right in the Gene Machine. These skills are going to be so needed in the future, and that's what I am so glad both of our missions can align with, inspiring that to happen. And something that I think is so important too that I just wanted to touch on briefly is it is an outreach program. You all are going to the entire state of South Carolina, and as Miss South Carolina, I've really made it one of my missions to touch some of those Title I schools. And so I've been able to do fun science experiments. I've created a DNA bracelet project where I can create DNA bracelets with students. But going to these Title I schools and being able to touch 43 out of 46 counties in South Carolina is amazing. I go to some of these schools, which I'm sure you can agree, and some of these students ask me, can I really do that? And I truly believe that talent is widespread in our state, but opportunity is not. So being able to have this bus and go out into these communities allows those students who might not have that opportunity to see, really hope for their future and how those skill sets can allow them to succeed in their future. So just to wrap up, I know I'm short on time, but STEM, it hasn't stopped growing. It will not stop growing. And like you said, I am headed to Miss America on December 19th to really just bring this to the national level, to show students that they can go into science, that they can be a geneticist, that they can work in the lab and find these amazing cures and help make an impact on their community. So make sure you put on your Santa hat and watch on December 19th. That's my little plug right before I end. But investing in organizations like this is really investing in our future workforce. You're closing that skills gap that is huge right now in our country. And so if you invest in this, which just betters our economy, betters our job, but the main impact is it's in creating a better quality of life. So a big thank you for not only what you all have done for the state of South Carolina, but what you've done for me, inspiring me to go into genetics at Clemson and inspiring my future career on that as well. So I appreciate that.